Hey, Jenny, I've just started the meeting there.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Marr, and I am an enterprise Azure seller in Codec. I would like to welcome you all this morning to our webinar on Microsoft Fabric and how to build a robust data platform and generate AI insights.
It's coming in just now.
Okay, sorry about that. So the agenda for it this morning is I'm going to give you a brief introduction on Codec. Paul is going to give you a brief introduction in the best practices of Microsoft Fabric. Augustina will then take you through how Microsoft Fabric works. And then we're going to hear from Circa, who's going to tell you how the Department of Transport is using Fabric. And then it'll go back to me for closing out, and then the webinar will finish. And I'll take any questions at the end.
Perfect. Hopefully everyone can see that slide. Thanks a million. My name is Paul Norris. I'm Senior Data and AI Specialist here in Microsoft in Ireland. Work closely with our local customers and our partners like Codec. I'd just like to give you a quick introduction to the technology, Microsoft Fabric, the one that Jenny mentioned there in the intro, just so you understand exactly maybe why this is potentially of interest to you, what is it that's new about it in the market, and maybe just some of the benefits of it that are worth considering, and why our customers seem to be thinking that this is particularly useful to them right now. So if we just think a little bit about why a technology like Microsoft Fabric, which is ultimately a cloud data analytics platform, is particularly relevant today, I'm sure you've all heard about this Gen AI wave that's been happening the last couple of years. And as everyone goes through kind of developing their use cases for it, the bottom line kind of foundation that supports all of it is still the data that sits within your organization. So a lot of organizations, while they're interested in AI, are also kind of looking back at their data estate and using it as a chance to maybe improve what they do today, or potentially kind of evolve it to unlock some of the general data capabilities they may have around data science analytics, but then also enable AI going forward. When Microsoft were kind of looking at what the next generation of cloud analytics platforms should try and solve, it was pretty clear that in the kind of customer base today, things were getting a little bit complex. Either data sets were kind of being siloed between different departments and spread across organizations, or things were hard to kind of interlink and integrate and move data between different areas. And ultimately as well, there was this kind of growing need as well to try and have better data governance and control over the data to ensure that there were no issues developing from a compliance or regulatory perspective. And customers were maybe kind of finding that a little bit complicated, because if we look at this map of kind of all the potential technologies that sit in the data and AI space, even beyond Microsoft, just globally, as a customer, if you today are embarking on these kind of solutions and platforms, it's not an easy space to kind of figure out what you should use for what purpose, and potentially like how to integrate it all. So with Fabric, we're really trying to address that kind of what we're seeing in the market, which is we're trying to bring together one platform, try and help you to kind of have a place where you can centralize data, have good governance over it, but also enable like every department and kind of business area to be somewhat self-sufficient and do their analytics and their insights and unlock the value of AI going forward. But to have that in kind of one place so that the organization gets the benefits of scale and compliance and centralization. So that's where the Microsoft Fabric platform comes in. We're trying to, with this platform, move away from maybe, having multiple silos of analytics in the organization, data sources that are not maybe connected together, and enable kind of the ability to kind of start building Gen AI use cases if you want. So the key things about Fabric that we've tried to bring out with this technology is it is a SaaS platform, right? There is some infrastructure required depending on the size of your organization, but it is far less than you maybe would have had to do in the past if you wanted to build something like this. It is foundationally under the hood supported then by what we call a one lake, which is, as the name suggests, one place for all your data in the organization for analytics and insights to sit. So that means you do get benefits of when people integrate data sources, they're in one location and they can be shared among groups. So you don't have to repeat it, the kind of data preparation that you might have to do in the past. And we are trying to bring in some generative AI capabilities in it as well, in the form of co-pilots for Fabric that are in the platform when you have a certain level. So if I just kind of bring up kind of what is inside in Fabric, if you like here, we have about kind of 7 different technologies that would normally be used in building a kind of data analytics platform, and they all now become within the one wrapper of Fabric. So you might be familiar with Data Factory. It already exists in our cloud Azure platform, and it continues to do so. But we now have a version of it available in Fabric. Alongside it, then the key ones would be the data warehouse technology. That, as the name would suggest, is where you would go and build a data warehouse if you needed to. And we also include the Power BI Premium service, which organizations would normally use to kind of start to put some governance and control on their reporting frameworks and where they might build that. Under the hood, we have, like I said, the co-pilots, and those co-pilots are little virtual AI virtual assistants that can sit next to you in any of these kind of services to help you build reports, maybe do data engineering, maybe kind of interrogate the data warehouse. Under everything and one lake for the whole organization is the storage account, and that is where you start to place all your data as you bring it into the platform. And you can divide that up so you can have kind of areas within one lake that maybe HR has an area, operations, IT, and different departments, so that you can still have everything in one place. You can share amongst each other, but you can also have kind of some separation as well if you want to have governance on it. And then when it comes to governance, Microsoft Purview is our umbrella technology for governance across our entire suite of M365 Office products and also Azure. But we also have this product within Azure called Microsoft Purview, data governance in particular, and that's the one that looks after data sets. And when you pair that with Fabric, you've got a very strong way to kind of view where's your data coming from, what are you doing with it, what potential reports then are kind of downstream using that data set. And you can have kind of scans going on over time that allow you to kind of keep an eye on things to make sure you're complying with all your internal policies. So what that means when you deploy Fabric then is you really are trying to get to like a complete data analytics platform, as we call it. It is ideally, we're saying it's SaaS, software as a service. It is very much like Microsoft kind of Office and Excel online. You open a web browser, you have your interface, and you can start to build within that. We have one then data lake under the hood that becomes the area that everyone kind of masters their data sets that they want to use within Fabric. It also then has kind of ways in which you can expose different parts of it to different roles in the organization. So if people in certain departments really are interested in certain subsets of it, you can kind of set it up so they're just seeing the parts that they want to get access to. And ultimately, we're trying to enable and generate like data sets that can be used for other AI use cases going forward. When we mentioned there kind of the one lake concept as a place to start kind of mastering the data for the organization from an analytics perspective, that doesn't mean that in any way this is kind of forcing you to use one lake on certain data sources, or it can only be used then by certain kind of downstream systems after that. One lake is completely open. It is built on an open source Apache Foundation Delta Parquet format, and it will interoperate and connect to the vast majority of potential data systems and even other clouds out there that you might be using today. So we're really trying to create some place that can really act as that kind of one place that you can center and master the data. So once you have the data in the system and you're using all the features of Fabric to kind of generate, warehouses and analytics and insights and reports, you then get the ability then from Fabric to start to use Fabric a little bit as almost a little bit of a data broker for your organization. So if someone has created some insights and maybe you want to push some of those insights into a Power App, or you want maybe data from the Power App to come back into Fabric to generate reports, or maybe you want to push some of that out via Teams channels to different groups so they can be updated that something on a data set has changed, or even push it into third-party applications. Fabric can become that sort of hub and spoke model for you to be able to distribute the data and the insights you generate out to different groups in the business. So ultimately, the journey we're hoping people would go on here is you can kind of start to see how Fabric, with the one lake that comes with it, gives you a place to start centralizing your data. With all the tools in Fabric, you can then start to do the usual data analytics, data science workloads, start generating insights, distribute that out to the business. And then ultimately after that, at some point, when you want to start looking at AI use cases, you've got a very solid foundation that just naturally then becomes the area you start to connect to when the AI potentially wants to get access to structured data and start to see some of that in other applications. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I think I'm handing over to Augustina.
Yes, thank you very much, Paul. That was really insightful, and I think it gave us a great idea of the industry roadmap. So good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to today's webinar. My name is Agustina Lazzarini. I am one of the data solution architects here at Codec, where I've been working for the past 8 years now. During my time with the company, I had the privilege of working on a wide range of projects, from architecting and building some innovative solutions to implementing Microsoft Fabric nowadays. So I am really excited to share some insights with you today. So without further ado, let me share my presentation. Yeah. There we are. Make this bigger. Perfect. So before exploring Fabric in more detail, I think it's essential to understand and highlight the importance of a robust data platform, because no matter the size of your company or organization, having a strong foundation for your data is crucial to drive innovation and staying competitive. So what exactly is a data platform? As I'm sure most of you know, a data platform is a central infrastructure that collects, stores, manages, and processes data from various sources. Depending on the business needs, a data platform could take different forms, and it could involve different components such as cloud databases, data lakes, ETL pipelines, or different BI tools. But the goal is always the same: to organize data efficiently, making it accessible and actionable. So you can think of this platform as the backbone on how your data will be leveraged within your organization. Now, why a robust data platform is so critical? Well, there are many reasons, but a main one is that today businesses are constantly changing and growing, and so does your data. So having a versatile and a scalable solution that can easily accommodate new data workflows, bigger data volumes, or even new analytics and AI capabilities, ensuring that the infrastructure won't break under pressure, is key to provide the informed answers that your business or the teams in your organization need. Personally, I really like this flexibility in the platform, because especially when we are doing a transition to this new solution, I believe it's best to start small. So basically, let's do the small things right first. Let's get the basics there, and they need to be right. So then we can start adding components, increasing the complexity of our solution. A strong data platform also helps organizations implementing a data-driven decision-making approach, as empowers the decision makers with accurate, timely, and actionable insights that can impact the business strategies. Efficiency is another good reason, because with a reliable data platform and the appropriate data process in place, of course, your team can focus on the analysis rather than dealing with data silos, the inconsistencies, or even the preparation. So the time and effort could be redirected, having a positive impact on cost optimization. And one more thing that I believe is quite relevant, especially today with the increasing regulations that we have in the industry, like GDPR, for example, where businesses must ensure that their data is securely stored and managed, is, of course, security and compliance. A robust data platform should help you meeting the compliance and the industry standards while protecting sensitive information from potential data breaches. So, versatility and scalability, data-driven decisions, efficiency, security and compliance. And what's the great thing, or what's the great deal with Fabric? That brings together all these features that we are discussing about a robust data platform in one place. So that's what makes Fabric unique in my experience. The fact that offers a complete analytics platform to create your solution end to end in just one place. So as Paul was mentioning, it covers all the major components that makes up a solid platform, from data ingestion with data factory pipelines and data flows, data processing, for which you can also use the data flows or Spark notebooks. These notebooks are basically scripts or code that can be written in different languages, like an adapted version of Python, SQL, Scala, or R. So basically, you can choose which one to use based on the expertise of your team. Data storage with your lake houses and your data warehouses, with all your data residing in one lake. I like this comparative that one lake is a similar idea as OneDrive, but for your entire organization, because it creates this unified storage for all your data across your company. We can also include data science, machine learning models, and real-time analytics components. And of course, it also covers reporting, dashboards creations, and collaboration with Power BI. So it is a complete suite that, from the architecture and the developing perspective, it covers all the best practices and industry standards. For example, it integrates with your Microsoft account, which facilitates creating a security model. You can configure source control repositories. So for example, you can use DevOps for version control. You can easily migrate items between environments or between workspaces using the native deployment pipelines. Having all your data in one lake can help you implementing a good governance strategy. It also provides a great collaboration experience because everyone involved in the development and the consumption of your data will now use or will now access the same platform. And as Paul was also mentioning, it integrates with Copilot that can help users with the analysis, the preparation, or even reports creation. So it really covers every aspect. And as I was saying earlier, it is important to have a powerful platform, but at the same time, I believe it needs to be flexible enough to adapt to your different needs. Because, for example, not all the areas of your company might have the same maturity regarding data. Some might be more advanced than others. Some might need more complex processing or more complex calculations. Some might need help figuring out what to do or how to treat their data. So I don't want to get too technical because that's not the purpose of this webinar, but I do want to show you that Fabric is a versatile platform that works well for multiple scenarios. For example, we can go from the simplest data lake, where we have our different data sources that can even contain different types of data, like structure, unstructured, or real-time data. This data is then ingested and stored in its original unprocessed format. This is done using some type of file, which usually are not deleted, which allow us to reprocess our entire history if necessary. Then the raw data is cleaned, structured, transformed, and prepared for use in data marts and data warehouses. But in this scenario, you usually need the assistance of your data engineers because the end users won't have the technical expertise to connect and extract themselves the data that they need, right? Which brings us to another scenario, a more complex scenario, where imagine that we have our data process very well defined. For example, we can think in the financial report that we've been doing and that we've been presenting for the last couple of years. So we know exactly all our requirements, and we know that these requirements will hardly change. Then we can opt for a data warehouse architecture where we have our well-defined data source, whether it's an Excel file, an extract from any financial system, a combination of multiple sources. It doesn't matter. We know them and we know their format. We know exactly what transformations are necessary to match our table schemas. We decided then to schedule this to automatically load the data and save it regularly into a table. A table that then we can use to feed our Power BI model and present the latest data to the end user with minimal human intervention. So this might be a bit less flexible compared to the previous one, but it gets you exactly what your end users need. Or we can also go with a hybrid option, as it is the lakehouse architecture, which combines the best of both worlds. This approach organizes data into layers to make it easier to manage and use it. And you can think of the medallion architecture like preparing a meal in stages, for example. First, we have our bronze layer, where you gather all your raw ingredients, your veggies, your spices, the meat, everything. The same way you collect raw data from your different data sources. In this bronze layer, everything it is unprocessed, but you have everything that you need. So you have collected everything that you need. Then we move into the silver layer. Now here you clean, you chop, and you organize your ingredients. So at this stage, we are basically preparing the data. So we clean it, we remove errors, we address inconsistencies. So we make the data more understandable, just like getting your ingredients ready for cooking. Lastly, we move into the gold layer, where you cook and you have your meal ready to be served. So in terms of data, this means that it is fully processed and it is ready to be used in reports and analysis. By moving through these different layers, you make sure that your data is well organized, that is reliable, and and it is ready to support decision makers. In this case, contrary to the other two, the lakehouse architecture, we can say it's useful for both your data engineers and your data scientists, as well as your end users, because the different groups could access the layer of the data that is relevant to them. So you can see that what we can do with Fabric is pretty flexible, and that we can easily implement the components or the design that best adapts to your needs. We were talking about architectures and different patterns of data processing, but the governance, and the security around that data are crucial in any business, because our data needs to be secured, clear, and accessible only by authorized users. And here is where the integration with Microsoft Purview could be extremely useful, because it can help us scanning our data sets and creating the corresponding data lineage, data catalogs. You can define glossaries, you can apply policies, all of that, making sure that you meet any potential regulation that might exist. As I was saying, and Paul was mentioning earlier, Microsoft Fabric seamlessly integrate with Purview, so you only need to grant the appropriate access and establish the corresponding connection between the two of them. Now, I hope you still follow me, because I'm about to share a very important point that I really want you to take away from this session. As it says on the screen, one capacity drives all your Fabric experiences. What this means is that you will pay only one subscription, and this will get you access to all the Fabric functionalities: the data pipelines, the Spark engines, the semantic models, absolutely everything. You don't need to pay for the individual services I repeat, you don't need to pay for the individual services. Everything is included within your capacity. The capacities provide basically the computer power. And of course, you have different capacities. The more power, the higher the price. But what I want you to understand is that you will pay for your capacity. It doesn't matter if you run one pipeline or 10. If you have 2 data flows and the next month you add 50 notebooks, if you can accommodate all of that under your capacity, you will still have the same expense every month, even if one month you don't execute or you don't load anything. Now, to provide a reliable and efficient experience, Fabric implements these 2 techniques, bursting and smoothing. Bursting is the ability to handle sudden increases in the demand or the workload. So, for example, imagine there is a big event in the company and a lot of people suddenly is trying to access the same data or the same service. Bursting, what it does in this case, is quickly allocate extra resources to manage the spike without slowing down or crashing the system. So it could be like having extra staff to help customers when a store or when a restaurant gets too busy. Smoothing, on the other hand, is about maintaining a consistent performance over time. So instead of having the drastic peaks, it helps creating a steady flow, for example, by spreading the workload evenly so the system can handle the tasks more efficiently. If we go back to our store example, think of it as scheduling staff throughout the entire day to ensure that there are always enough people to help your customers rather than having a rush during lunchtime and then being short of staff for the rest of the day. So, of course, the key is to find the right capacity for your workloads, but you can start with a relatively small one. And by monitoring the performance metrics, then you can determine if you need to scale up or down. But remember, one capacity subscription, all Fabric features. So that brings us to the last bit of my presentation, where I want to reinforce how Microsoft Fabric can help you get in predictable timelines, by minimizing manual intervention, speeding up data processing, providing visibility or identifying bottlenecks early and scaling the resources to meet your data demands and therefore avoid delays. It also provides a clear visibility into deliverables as the centralization of the data facilitates the consistency and the clarity we get in the outputs. Besides, with the built-in governance, you can maintain the data quality, or should be easier to maintain the data quality, delivering reliable and more accurate results. And last but not least, helps with cost efficiency because the unified platform reduces the need for multiple tools, therefore lowering operational costs. It also optimizes resource allocation by scaling them dynamically. And with process automation, you can decrease manual intervention, saving time and costs. So that wraps my section of today's webinar. I hope I didn't go too far nor made it too boring. And I really hope you get some valuable insights out of this and how can Fabric benefit your organization. So I will now review the Q&A section in case there are some questions we can address later. But first, I will hand it over to our next speaker, Sorko Callahan, the head of data and analytics for Department of Transport. And Sorko will share with you their first-hand experience with Fabric. Thank you.
Thank you, Agustina. That was really interesting. So I'm just going to share my screen now. Hopefully you can see that. So my name is Sarah O'Callaghan. I'm the head of the Data and Analytics Division in the Department of Transport. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about why we use Fabric and how we're using Fabric and how it specifically addresses the challenges of disconnected data sources. So the Department of Transport, as I'm sure most of you know, is a central government department with many agencies. And we serve the government and people of Ireland, and our mission is to shape the safe and sustainable development of transport and to support economic growth and social progress. So in 2023, the department created a new data and analytics division. So the division was created to ensure the optimal use of all relevant data, our own data holdings and those of our agencies, to inform and evaluate policy. So our division is also responsible for ensuring we contribute to the open data initiatives and the national data infrastructure. So when I started about a year and a half ago, I engaged widely with the department, and it was very clear to me that there was a strong need for insights and data and statistics among policymakers to inform and evaluate their work. It was also clear that the department's data holdings were stored in a way that definitely facilitated operational efficiency, but not necessarily the easy governance and management of data, the accessibility of data, or the generation of insights and analytic products. We also had a lot of data in our agencies, and that resulted in quite siloed operational data sets that had huge potential to inform policy, but couldn't be used as such. So in late 2023, then, I published the department's data strategy. And one of the key enablers for that strategy was that we needed a modern data platform that could source data from our departmental systems, our agencies, and other sources, and that would have good data governance and security built in. And it would also enable us to deliver departmental-wide managed self-service analytics, operational reporting, and new data-driven capabilities, including descriptive and predictive analytics. And this was all needed to assist policy evaluation and creation. So we had no analytic tools like Power BI or Python or R, and we had no ability in the future to leverage AI with our data. So why did we choose Fabric? So the design for this platform kicked off just in February this year. So we were at that point in time, we had to make a decision whether we went with Fabric or we went with a more traditional data platform using discrete services for all the various components, as Agustina has showed you earlier on. So I suppose our concerns were that was Fabric ready? Did it have all the functionality from those discrete services built into the tool? So we evaluated and looked at what was available. And ultimately, we decided the main factor that influenced our decision was the attractiveness of having a SaaS platform which offered a unified service. So data engineering, data modeling, data science, and analytics all under one service. So the costing element was also significantly simplified in that there was one capacity for Fabric, which could be used by all these various elements. So the pipelines, the modeling, the analytics, and this capacity could be used by different elements at different times of the day, which was hugely attractive to us. It also allowed my data analysts to have workspaces that share that capacity for use for kind of bursting compute power at different times. So it was really useful to have one platform also that would flexibly allow different disciplines to work within the same software as a service environment. So the data engineers, the analysts, the architects can all work in the one environment, which is very easy, especially for training and for knowledge sharing and for knowledge transfer as well. The scalability was another attractive feature, whereby if we need to increase or decrease capacity, we can do this just in one service rather than trying to figure out the capacities across different individual discrete services. And I think having made that decision, 6 to 7 months on, I think I'm really impressed with the speed of deployment. So we started off with a proof of concept on the trial fabric capacity while our Azure environment was being completed. And we were surprised at how quickly the medallion architecture was to deploy. So we have a lakehouse architecture based on one lake. And it was really very impressive how quickly that was, that came into being. So we now have our Azure environment deployed and our models are migrated to the live environment. So what we're doing now is we're building pipelines and to the on-prem systems, and the pipelines have proven easier to build and also more efficient. So we've noticed, our data engineers have noticed that we're not paying for data that's queued. So there's an improved efficiency of execution, which is very important to us. Another added advantage is the security element. So obviously, we're a government department, and we have sensitive data on citizens, and trust is really important to us. So because of that security and privacy consciousness that we have, we're very happy that Microsoft Purview links so closely with Fabric. And that allows us to define sensitivity labels on our data. And we have data lineage, and we can track the data all the way through from where it leaves the on-prem system to the reports and the tables at the end. So that was a key advantage for us. But I suppose the main advantage as well for us is that the data from different sources can all be stored in one lake in Delta Parquet format, and that really simplifies integrating data from different sources for us. One of our key products that we did as a kind of a Pathfinder project to show the value of the department was a climate action plan tracker dashboard, which takes a huge amount of data from our own vehicle data for fleet electrification. It takes data from other bodies on different measures of climate action in transport, and integrating those into one dashboard to be presented to the Minister on the key performance of transport with regard to the climate action plan is a kind of a typical example of the kind of insight we need to bring. And Fabric is really good for that, for integrating data from different sources into one central lake. There was also, we found a wide range of connectors available, and this was key to connecting to those multiple data sources. So there were, of course, so this is a picture of the architecture we have. Now, of course, we did find some challenges with Fabric, but they were fairly minor. We found that, for example, shortcuts for transferring data were not compatible with our security restrictions because we have private endpoints in place, but there were still other ways to do it. And I suppose that just might be by virtue of the fact that we're taking a very, very conservative approach to security, given the data that we're dealing with. In the future, we do plan to use our platform for advanced machine learning and AI. So at the moment, the machine learning and AI capabilities within Fabric, we can do basic regressions and classifications, but for the moment, we've connected in Azure Machine Learning Studio via Bastion, because not all the features are enabled yet, but they will be enabled by the time we come to use them, I think, within a year or so. So we're happy with that. So yeah, as I say, there are some small features that are still in preview mode for us, but it's not holding us back at this point in time, and they're all coming on stream. So by and large, we're very happy that we went with Fabric to integrate multiple data sources, to have one source of truth, and it's proved very, very efficient to get up and running. So yeah, in conclusion, we're very happy with the speed of deployment, the flexibility, the scalability, and we're looking forward to ingesting data and giving more insights to policymakers. And I think when you set up a new division from scratch, it's key to show value early. And I think that the speed of deployment and the fact that we could showcase value early has helped my business case definitely, and helped prove the value early. So that's it. Thanks for listening today. Thank you.
Circa, there's just one question in the chat window there for you if you want to have a quick look at it.
Up here and there. Do you have any situation where you need into pipeline? Yeah, so I think if I understand the question, we load data from our main vehicle and driver database every night at 11 o'clock. It's a scheduled pipeline, and we do indeed do an incremental load. So we have enormous tables of every vehicle and driver in the country. So what we do is we just do a load of the data that's changed in the last 24 hours. And our system is ELT, so it's extract, load, and transform. So we load the rows of our tables that have changed from the last 24 hours into ADLS Gen 2. And that goes from there into our bronze layer. And the bronze layer is always that raw delta data. And it's only from there on that we start transforming it in the silver and gold layer. So we found that was the most efficient way to go, especially given the size of our tables. I'm not sure if that's answered the first question there. So will I move on to the next question? We are not importing financial data from Oracle or eBus Suite. No, we don't have that. So in terms of the Fabric capacity sizing, so what we've decided to do is go as pay as you go, just for a small while to figure out our capacity, and then we're going to choose. I think we have a dev and prod environment. To the best of my knowledge, we're F8 for the dev, and I think F32 for the prod. So we're going to let that run for a couple of months. It's very early stages yet, and we have that real-time dashboard with the costings in there. So I think the key thing is we can always move up a capacity if we need to, but not move down once we lock in. So we're going to let that run for a small time and evaluate that.
Sorry there, Sorg. I think there are some technical questions that we can that are more addressed to us regarding some of the connections there. We might need to change. We might need to check. Sorry, because it keeps changing, and Microsoft keeps adding new connectors every now and then. So you can connect to some financials. I'm not sure if it is that a specific Oracle one that we are mentioning, but we can check, and the same with the NetSuite connector, and we can come back to you to confirm those two.
And just in terms of the question on the learning curve, so yeah, my team are coming up to speed quite well on Fabric actually. They're currently that we've used the Fabric in a day training, and Codec have actually supported us and given us a 3-day version of Fabric in a day just to give an extra bit of support to my team. So yeah, some of my team have only ever used Excel, some of them used a bit of Tableau. So it was quite a learning curve, but they're really coming up to speed, and they find it a lot more intuitive than what they're used to. So it's been a very positive experience from that point of view.
Okay, guys, I'm going to close the webinar now. But before we close it, we'd all like you to complete. I've just put a feedback form into the chat window there. If you could take a few minutes to complete the form, and we will reach out to you all individually if you request so on the form, and discuss what offerings around fabric we can help you with. Thanks, everyone.